Yeah. A very warm welcome. It's Andy. It's Two Peas in a podcast for this Sunday, the 18th of January. Hope you're having a great new year. And today's special guest, a bit more special than some. Um, it's a subject in my heart that I would like to know more about. It's Paul Sutliff. So paulsutliff.com. He's also got a blogger site, and that's paulsutliff.blogspot.com. I read a bit of bio. Paul Sutliff gave his life to Christ at the age of 16. He married and has three children in their 30s. He later divorced. He spent about a year feeling he'd failed God and wondering what kind of man he could be if he could not be the man he believed God wanted him to be. Thank God Paul's children pushed him to go back to church. Paul started to attend Hope Christian Fellowship a year later with his faith renewed and strengthened, and he returned to reading his Bible daily and developing close ties to new friends. Having a love of research and writing, he had already earned Paul a spot on the bookshelves in Barnes and Nobles across the country in the field of special education. Paul discovered that the Muslim Brotherhood was operating out of the school where he earned his master's in education, Nazareth College of Rochester, and started to do research on this topic. Paul has since published a series of books and articles on the topic of civilization jihad, and I'll put the links to .com, the blogspot, and all the books from Barnes and Noble and Amazon at the bottom. This has earned him a national platform speaking about national security on radio shows, podcasts, and a few TV spots. I'll leave it there, Paul. It's quite a long bio, and God will guide us basically, won't he? So yeah. So over here, if you don't like, let's say you don't like the people from other countries that are trying to shelter, they come in on the small boats in the UK. It's out of hand at the moment. Our local people can't even get water because the Severn Water Authority in the southeast don't know, they're throwing the money at the wrong things basically. And because we're going to moan about that as citizens, not just because they can't have water, but these people coming in on small boats. Oh, we've got Islamophobia. I don't understand it. I mean, we haven't got a phobia of people who are black or white from foreign nations. We've just got a phobia of being used by our government.
Islamophobia is, uh, I don't know if I have to wait. Islamophobia is, phobia is an irrational fear. That's the humor here. If you have an irrational fear, that means there's no logic behind it. But if Islam is really out to get you, then it's not a phobia. It's rational. So that's something that has to be evaluated. Um, is the government out to get you? Well, let's ask that question. Was the British Navy supposed to be the strongest strongest Navy in the world for many years? The answer is a simple yes.
It
All
was.
social studies teachers taught this. I mean, it didn't
Mm.
matter what country you're in, they taught this. So how is it possible they can't stop little bitty boats coming into over the English Channel into Great Britain? Please explain that one to me, because it seems to me like they're just allowing them or helping them get ashore. Oh, they might drown. Uh, whose risk is it? Theirs. Let them take the risk. The English Channel is dangerous. We all know this. Okay, they don't make it. Whose fault is that? I'm not saying we have to be careless but if they're coming to your country to wreak havoc, to steal, like we're having a problem in the United States, which is humorous. I did it. I've been doing a study on Sharia, and in Sharia it says you're allowed to rob others. You're allowed to steal from others as long as you do it with friends and family. You can't do it alone. You have to do it with friends and family. This is what Sharia says. So now we're discovering all these Somalians who are friends and family are robbing us blind by billions of dollars. And it just as they're doing to the UK, and they have been doing for decades, far longer than they have been in the United States. Um, in fact, the ones who really deserve the credit for the research on this, um, I can't think of the names. Um, there's two people, Oriana Fallaci and I can't think of the person's name, but Oriana Fallaci points out everything. She's one of my favorite writer. I know she's long gone at this point, but she pointed out that Europe invited all these people in. It's Europe, the European government officials, the European commercial growth as a union before the even union existed. They invited everybody in, knowing there was a danger. So it goes back to even farther. I think this is where we get foolish. We don't pay attention to the reasons why people come to your countries, the West. Why do they come to the West? And I found an amazing site for our Canadian friend. We'll talk about that later. But do you know the word in Arabic to come to another country is the word for migrate means hijra. Well, let's think about that. Hijra is supposed to be the beginning of Islam. So that means Islam didn't start when Muhammad became a prophet. Islam didn't start when Muhammad started preaching. It didn't start when anything until he left the area called Mecca. Oh, so it didn't start till he became a political leader. Okay, then he goes down to a place called Yathrib, which they later renamed Medina. Okay, that's where the word Hijra comes from. It's the move from Mecca to Yathrib. Okay, that's what they keep referring to. However, today, if you look at the Quran and you look at Hadith and you go to things like Islam Q&A, you'll find out when you talk about the word migration or hijra, they'll say if you go to I went to one site and I asked this question. I went to Islam Q&A and I found an answer. It says, can Muslims settle in Kafir countries like the West for the sake of a better life? This is one of the answers. It's obligatory to migrate from Kafir lands to the Muslim lands for those who are able to do that if they are unable to practice their religion openly. Okay, so why are they coming to Muslim lands? Here we go. It's in the Quran. You'll love this one. Surah 2, 218. Surely those who believed and those who emigrated and performed jihad. Oh, Surah 872. Surely those who believed and those who emigrated and performed jihad with their money and their lives for the sake of Allah and those who have asylum. Wait, we don't have a phobia. This is rational. We're reading their book. Surah 874. And those who believed and emigrated and performed jihad for the sake of Allah. Again, rational. And those who gave asylum and help, those who are the true believers, they will receive forgiveness and generous provisions. 875. And those who believed afterward and emigrated and performed jihad with you, those are of you. And there's more on this. So if their purpose to coming to Western lands is to commit acts of war, which is what jihad is. It's according to Sharia, jihad is war against the non-Muslim. So the word phobia should be thrown out. It was created by this term Islamophobia was created by the International Institute of Islamic Thought. And the whole purpose of that word was to shut people up. They came up with this term. I believe it started in the UK. I can guess who it was created by within that entity, but I don't like to say things without having proof.
You're probably
So,
right.
um, I mean, there's just certain people who would come up with those things. And what happened was people in the UK and people in the United States and Canada and other places we're criticizing, just providing a simple criticism. Well, when you do that, you provide a channel for information to be given. This is where my books, that's all I do. I share the information, I share the sources, and like I'm providing the source, so you can go check me. All right, this is
Yeah,
the cool thing.
last week we sort of brushed on this subject a little bit with Tim. He came up with an example of several different names with phobia in them that, some governments have made up. Obviously, Islamophobia was one of them, but another one was, you know, in the 80s, we had a problem where gay people was coming out and some people didn't like that. So there was a phobia about, hating gays. And it's a pity he wasn't here because he'd explained it very well. That, they basically make you feel bad when they shouldn't do. But Tim would have explained it a lot better than that.
I have Canada's kind of unique problem over there, and let me just see if I can find my piece I did in Canada. I gave a couple speeches in Canada. They started to have something called Motion 103, and I used to go to Canada and speak. Now, I'm just trying to find my last speech over there. Um, when you actually look up Islamophobia and you start to look at what they said on Islamophobia, it should blow your mind. Why is that? Well, Islamophobia is a joke. The whole definition of it is a joke because there is no definition, because they don't use the words irrational fear. And that is the problem. When you won't put the actual definition down, trying to find that last speech, because the cool thing about this is I have the words of the Canadians who are trying to define M103, and I can just find my paper on this. I had it up. I don't think I kept it up, which is pretty bad. All right. Let's see here. And cancel
I mean,
M103. Yeah.
one statement I will say before you do that. One thing that we did make clear last week that is the problem, and it isn't fair to them. It's not actually the Muslims' fault over here. I think they're being used against us white people because most Muslims over here are brilliant people. They always use Islamophobia against, the Muslim problem, but it isn't a Muslim problem, I don't think.
Well, the word, again, it was created by the International Institute of Islamic Thought is a Muslim Brotherhood entity. When I was in when I was in Europe, I went to a few places. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I was in Paris, France. I was in Berlin, Germany, and I was in Stockholm, Sweden. And all three of the intelligence agencies that spoke to us when I was there in 2016, we asked them, who do you think is there a cause behind what's happening? And they said specifically they believe the Muslim Brotherhood was behind this hijra because they're always there to receive them. So Europe as a whole knew the Muslim Brotherhood was the catalyst behind this move to push people in. But let me give you some of the definitions of Islamophobia from from Canada. And just to give you, I mean, I'm sure you can pull up ones that are just as wild as this. Um, this is from, I believe, one of my speech in 2018. Wow, that was a ways back. Mr. Arif Virani, he was a member of parliament in Canada. He may still be. He said, Islamophobia to me means uttering death threats, assaulting hatred, threats of violence towards people, and vandalism of their places of worship. Well, Canadian law had stuff to cover that kind of speech. They had rules about hate speech. So that really didn't need to be done. How about Ikra Khalid she's a member of parliament still. She said the definition of Islamophobia she subscribes to is irrational fear or hatred of Muslims or Islam that leads to discrimination. Okay, but again, if they're out to kill you, which is what jihad is it irrational? I mean, according to what I'm reading out of the Quran, I tell people to read the Quran to find out if what I'm telling you is true. That's what I think everybody who really wants to know what Islam is about should read the Quran. And I'll tell you what's going to happen when you read it. You're going to sit there and say, this doesn't make any sense. And that's the problem everybody faces who actually starts to read it. You get frustrated because it's not sensical. It's not in any logical sense of order. In fact, there's so many contradictions in the Quran. It's as totally clear as mud. But when you study it and you look into what do the Islamic scholars say about each passage, you start to understand there's pieces in the Quran that are abrogated, which means they're no value today. This one surah, Surah 9, got rid of everything peaceful. It abrogates every other peaceful verse. Now, this Surah 9 is the last thing Muhammad said. And according to the Quran, what's said last rules over everything else. So, following the Quran's teachings, if the last thing is teaching violence, that's what you have to accept. This is what Muslims believe. It's not. It's not what non-Muslims believe. There's a huge difference. Their idea of God is not the same idea as a non-Muslim's concept of God. It's a huge difference. In fact, when they use the word God, they're still lying to you. It's deception. Deception's required under Sharia. They must deceive the non-believer. It's a requirement. And this, you have to understand all this stuff. I mean, I've spent years now looking at this, and I find it humorous. So much deception is being done. Um, what's the intent if you're going to always deceive someone? Um, and is this irrational? If is it an irrational fear when you're talking about Islamophobia, when somebody's purpose in life is to deceive you because they're going to rob you blind, rape your children, or rape your wife? I mean, that's actually those two things. We're talking about rape and sexual assault are considered part of jihad because that concept of like raping a woman or that's considered taking your booty. Okay. Those women become their slaves so they can sexually assault them and their belief structure. So since you're not, that's their claim to superiority.
I do believe in our grooming gangs inquiries and scandals that some of the persons that did wrong said, I didn't know any different. My Bible told me, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Or
the,
Quran.
yeah, the
The
Quran,
Quran told them.
there is something in that, what you say there.
Yeah, it's in Sharia. It's in the Quran. It says that this is acceptable, this is normal, and this is a problem. Um, so they'll come from all these countries where you're allowed to rape and sexually assault those who are not Muslim. The reason for the hijab, you see this hijab, and the whole reason for the hijab was that a caliph did not want, or a guy who was going to be caliph, he did not want the Muslim women to be sexually assaulted. So when at night, when people were going to the bathroom, he told the Muslim women they have to wear a hijab. That way they can identify the sex slaves and they can sexually assault the sex slaves. Wait a minute. So it's okay to sexually assault women. This is their history. You're allowed to sexually assault those who do not wear hijabs. Oh, that's where you'll see people. I mean, women in the UK are complaining, well, I have to wear a hijab so I don't get sexually assaulted. Well, they think you're Muslim. Well, again, if you pretend to be Muslim and then you leave Islam, they're allowed to kill you. So you're getting into a whole other ball of wax when you start to play that game. And I mean, they're allowed to bribe you to become Muslims. That's part of Sharia. All right. They're allowed to pay you. I mean, that's part of what they're allowed to do. They can, give you a payments for I don't know how long, but it's actually written right into where does the cop payments go to? They will pay people who get it to become Muslim. They will do that. That's in there. So there's a whole bunch of statements here about the dangers of this hijra. And I mean, my family came over to the United States 400 years ago. And I get a little embarrassed when I think about the UK and the men that don't stand up to defend their families. Um, and this is my heritage. And I wait a minute. Where are the men in the UK who stood up and defended? I mean, this is what I used to be proud of my heritage. Now I'm sitting back and looking and wait, where are these guys?
Actually, we're
I mean,
very lucky at the moment, and it's only happened in the last 2 years. You might have heard of the name. It's not his name, but it's the name he goes under because people recognize it. It's called Tommy Robinson. Now, he's been hounded by the authorities, been put in jail because, and he said, look, in jails, they're running the jails like, the drugs, but the Muslims are running it. And yeah, so he's had a couple of big demonstrations that's got a million plus the last protest. And he's read the Quran, I believe, and he's come to very similar conclusions. It's a pity when he does his next rally, they couldn't invite you over, all expenses paid, because somebody pays for it from somewhere, even if it's God, and because I think that's what we need. The public need to know what you know. I mean, it's okay coming on a little podcast, but we need you on a bigger podcast because you're the expert in a way of the understanding of what the problem is. And I'm not just
and
saying that.
this is the issue. I mean, I'd love to do podcasts or radio with UK. Again, this is my heritage. I'm very proud of my British heritage, but it becomes hard to be proud when there's not enough. When you got cops who are hiding in secret. Well, we might be naming a group of people. Why? Why? Because they're Muslim. Because they're following their belief structure. That's why this is all happening. It's why they get upset with Tommy because he's telling you, hey, the people who are in charge of your foreign department, your relations with foreign countries, they should have known this.
Yeah, well,
They should not only have known it, they should have warned everyone. In fact, they should have said no, but they didn't say anything.
I think Tommy Robinson and the majority of the UK, I do believe that we don't blame, like you wouldn't blame the ordinary Christian, we don't blame the ordinary Muslim. What we do blame is these extreme Muslims, these
No,
extreme.
that's
No, is
that's
that
the
wrong?
error. That is the error.
Ah,
That is the error. It is Islam that teaches this stuff. If you're Muslim and you don't accept this stuff, you're not accepted by Muslims as a whole. By accepting there's such a thing as moderate Islam, you become what they call a useful idiot.
so I'm going
And
to ask
that's
a silly question. Sorry to have butted in a silly question then. So to belong to the Islam religion, you have to be, well, not just a Muslim, I'd imagine, but I'm just saying, do you have to only be a Muslim? Or is it definite, no matter what you are, you have to be believing in the Quran and Islam?
if you don't accept any
Hmm.
part of the Quran or of the Sharia, you can be killed,
Oh, okay.
become an apostate. So any one part, if you don't accept one verse, okay? So you will meet people who call themselves Meccan only Christian Muslims, okay? They only accept the Quran that was written in Mecca. Well, they're not Muslims according to Islam, all right, according to the Sharia. So I mean, when Muslims, the word Islam means submit. All
Hmm.
right. And when in Egypt, when they yell at a thief who's running down the street to get them to stop, they yell Islam, submit. They don't yell, they're not yelling stop, they're yelling submit, Islam. They're yelling Islam. Oh, so stop so they don't shoot you. You hear I'm going? This is how dangerous Islam is. And it is a sad, sorry thing that the great royalty, the great lords of parliament have done nothing to study Islam, to protect the people of Great Britain, the Scots, the everybody, Ireland. Nobody has done this work. You've got Tommy Robinson who does it, and they put him in jail. Um, I would go over there, but and speak, but I'm betting they wouldn't let me in
Mhm.
because I mean, I don't know. I mean, my book's for sale over there on Amazon. It's up to you guys to purchase it. I mean, all I do with my last book is The Cancer of Civilization Jihad. It just asks questions, social norms of Islam. And when you start looking at that, it should blow your mind. It's just questions. Well, social norms. What are social norms? They're behaviors. Um, the one person I thought they were going to put in jail, the most recent one that I thought they were going to put her in jail for a long time, um, is this little Scottish girl um, from Dundee. She's 14 years old. She was out there, they say, with a bladed weapon. She had an axe. She was going to protect her little sister who was 12. She had a nasty mouth. She's yelling at somebody who was going to attack her sister. Well, you know what? At that age, I probably would have a nasty mouth going after someone who was my little sister. And, you know, that young lady knew more about Islam than the Scottish lords.
Wow.
That young lady knew more about Islam than the people who in government who have the responsibility to know these things. Um, UK has people in charge of national security who agree with the concept of jihad. Really, think about that. Who you have in charge of national security, you have Muslim members of parliament. We have the same problem here in the United States. We have congresswomen and
Well, we
congressmen
have
who agree with
obviously
this.
the mayor of London. He's definitely 1,000,000% Islam Muslim hate of the white people. He's even said it on Twitter, and he's still the mayor of London. Then we have the First Minister of Scotland. I think he resigned because he had a similar, you know, way of thinking. So, I mean, my problem is I wouldn't go to a country that I didn't like visiting. I would go there because I loved it. I want to be a part of that culture. I mean, I go, believe it or not, when we go on holiday, I always go to places like Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, because I just love that type of person. To think though that their religion is going against us where I live is another matter. But
That's that's how we think as Westerners. One of the first people I talked to that tried to show me there's a difference between the belief of Islam and the belief of us, what he considered Western fools. And his first statement, this is a child who told me this. He said, well, let me explain the difference between the way us people out of Palestine think versus what you stupid Westerners think. He says, what would you rather lose, your wife or your land? And I said, my land. He says, you're stupid. You can always get a new wife, but you can't get your land back. I was like, what? So their
pitiful.
purpose in coming into England is to make your country Muslim. That's the only thing they are allowed to come to a Western land, to a non-Muslim land, is to convert that land into an Islamic country. That is the only reason, according to that faith structure, that they are allowed to go to a non-Muslim country. So they are going there for the purpose of jihad. Just like I quoted those verses out of the Quran. This is what you find in places like Islam Q&A. Again, this is all open information. This is why I can't understand if I can get a hold of this information, if I can find this research easily. Why is no one talking about this if they come to the country for the intent of damaging it? That is a problem when you don't want these things known. I can't comprehend that.
It's certainly mad because if everybody had the knowledge, then it would be magic, wouldn't it?
Well,
Well,
you would shut the door. It's
yeah,
just like
exactly. We would all. Well, the government
would
should
be
shut. The government,
the
if they
Navy would
read
be
this,
saying,
yeah, they would.
the Navy would have a blockade. Okay, yeah, okay, we're going to shoot your boat or turn around. All right. That's the Navy has to do that. It has to be a choice. I mean, you're an island. You have the ability to do that more than any other country. You have that ability. All right. You could just say, you're coming this way. It's not allowed. Boom. All right. We've warned you. We've given you 3 warnings. You don't listen. We're shooting your boat. I'm not saying to go out there and kill people. My thing is to protect yourselves. Because and if unless you're willing to protect yourselves, you're not saving the UK. You're giving it up. And that's what they recognize. They're saying right now that the UK is actually a haven for the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood. All right. There's 2 places right now in the world that are havens, actually 3. You've got
America, Canada,
Qatar, you've got Turkey,
whatever.
and you've got the UK. Canada is a little behind, but those 3 are where you're going to find the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood. All right, they're going to run from Egypt. They're accepted in Qatar. They're accepted in the UK. Oh, but wait a minute. I mean, the UK can't figure out this is the parent of Al Qaeda. They recognize Al Qaeda as a terrorist group. They know who the parents are. That every national security expert in the world knows that. But the UK won't talk about it. Canada won't talk about it until countries start recognizing this. I mean, even in the United States, well, we've only recognized 3 little places. These are, I mean, it's public documents. Let me read the motto of the Muslim Brotherhood, and just to give you an idea how ridiculous this is. Um, let's see, I just had it out yesterday. I was reading it. Here it is. This is the motto from 1928 of the Muslim Brotherhood. You tell me if you think you should allow anyone into the UK as a Muslim Brotherhood member, knowing their Muslim Brotherhood, or openly, because you have open groups in the UK that openly admit to their affiliation of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is their motto. Allah is our objective. The Quran is our constitution. The Prophet is our leader. Jihad is our way, and death for the sake of Allah is the highest of our aspirations. They're willing to die to change your country into an Islamic country. And when they go and rape your women or sexually assault them or do whatever they're doing that are these crimes, this is their way of proclaiming victory over your country, over your culture. They're taking your women, by doing this, they're calling them sex slaves. That's their proclamation of victory.
Wow.
And it is shocking when I've been studying this for wow, almost I'd say almost 15 years now, and I feel stupid because I didn't get in on this earlier. And the more I study, the more I become shocked. Um, so here's another thing they teach. It's in Sharia. It's called. Let me just pull it up. And I'm still learning. I'm studying under other people so I can learn. Um, I am not proclaiming myself the genius end all be all at all. I want to keep learning so I don't fall behind. Let me see. Let's put this. So their statement in Sharia, there is a section titled Enjoining Good and Forbidding Evil. So what does that mean? If you go to Quran 3:104, it says, and there will be among you a nation, the Ummah, okay, calling to the good and commanding what is right and forbidding from evil. And those are the prosperous. Now, what does Al-Tabari say this means? That's their Islamic scholar. Because in general, that doesn't make much sense. Now, this will shock you. Al-Tabari says, Al-Tobri, I'm sorry, Al-Tobri says, a group of people invite others to goodness, meaning to Islam, and its laws that Allah has prescribed for his servants, and they enjoin what is right. They become Muslim, basically. He says they command people to follow Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him and the religion that he brought from Allah. And they forbid what is wrong. Oh, so they tell you what's wrong. They forbid disbelief in Allah, okay, because you get killed if you don't believe in Allah. And rejecting Muhammad, okay, you get killed if you don't believe in Muhammad and what he brought from Allah. And their jihad against them with their hands and limbs. So they're going to kill you if you don't agree. This is for, do you hear what this for? This is kind of, this is what's happening in the UK. And this is what's happening around the world. And again, I'm just starting to study this section of Sharia. So I'm trying to get the answers. I'm going to experts to find more than what I'm finding on the surface level. And some of these things are not translated into English. So I have to go to experts who know the Arabic, who can translate that for me. It's mind numbing. Why are government agencies who proclaim themselves the best in the world, the big seven, why are those agencies not informing the general public of what Islam really teaches? Because if they did, they would proclaim it dangerous to their people. And
Good question.
it's scary. I mean, we have huge mosques here in the United States. In the UK, they're building mosques all the time, and all throughout Europe, they're buying up old churches and turning them. They're tearing down the crosses and doing this. It's happening here in the United States. How is it accepted? When people don't know stuff, we don't teach us. We teach in public schools that there are 5 pillars. That's a lie. There are 6. The 6th pillar is jihad. All right. And some will say there's a 7th pillar. This is where a few of my friends and I differ. I will say there's 6. They say there's 7. They'll put dawah, which is changing, getting people to believe in Islam. And I skip that because I consider that part of jihad. Because when I read those verses that say migrate and then jihad, there's jihad. In fact, it's actually said that there's three levels of jihad. One is heart level jihad. So you have to hate all that is not Muslim. So that means you have to hate the Christian, you have to hate the Jew, you have to hate the atheist, you have to hate the Buddhist, you have to hate them all. The next one is the second level, which is, this is where you're writing type thing or speaking publicly. Oh, you can do this is where dawah comes in. And this is considered a level of jihad. Okay. The third level, this is violence, action jihad. And this is in the 1915 fatwa, which the United States hid. You can find mention of this in Ambassador Morgenthau's story. It's free online if you want to find that book. I'm willing to I'll send you a copy of it if you want to share it with her. It is mind numbing.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
I think the big thing that comes down to it, none of our intelligence agencies are appearing very intelligent. They're not protecting us. And that is the thing that upsets me the most. I have a graduate certificate in intelligence analysis, and yet when I talk to members of the military, they don't know the war at home. And that's here in the United States. And I'm talking about the war against the Muslim Brotherhood. It's their declared war. In the United States, they wrote a statement declaring their war against us. I mean, that's crazy. They actually made a huge document. It's called the Explanatory Memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood here in North America. They wrote one paragraph and it says this: understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. Now, in your country, they use the term Islamization, where their word is civilization jihad here. All right. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which means brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. But would the slackers and the mujahideen be equal? The mujahideen are the warriors. That's what they said here in North America. And I'm sure if the MI6, MI5, whichever organization there has done their work, they will have found something like similar to this.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, back in the world wars, our boats were there stopping the Germans coming in. It's no different in a way. It's a war. Why let the enemy in? And see, this scenario is now the Germans, let's say the Germans are already in most of our country now, half of it. We can't get rid of them. So that's our main problem. Now we've let them in, we can't get rid of them because it's Islamophobia or some other, racist, Muslim bashing, whatever you want to call it. We're screwed up.
So you have created you don't have an alternative. You will end up having a civil war. And that is a horrible, awful truth. And in this case, my bet is it's going to happen throughout all of Europe. And there will be countries who will sit and laugh at you. Poland may be one of them. I mean, you're going to find the countries who are saying no to Muslims, and they're going to sit there and say, we warned you. We said no. So UK has a chance. They have already said no to the EU. Why don't they start becoming the men, the real men, the godly men, all right, who are become those knights that they used to be and stand up for their families? Stand up. That's what it comes down to. I say use the Quran. Don't burn it. Use the Quran as evidence of a crime. I'm stealing the words of Osama Dakdak. I like that his statement is on this.
That's a good way of putting it. It's the evidence of the crime.
Yeah, if you look at it and you read it as evidence of their belief and what they're doing and carrying out, you start to look at it that way. If Surah 9 is all that's relevant in the Quran, you now can explain all these horrendous acts. I'm reading horrible sexual assaults every week out of the UK, out of not just England.
Every
I'm
single
talking
week.
about every single week.
And then, of course, there's a problem with the asylum seekers' hotels. This if that wasn't bad enough, letting people in and then just ignoring them, putting them in their little places, they were letting single young men in who were under 30s with no wife, no woman, no baby, no child. Isn't that a clue? And
Military age.
that's why the British people then decided enough's enough. We'll go protesting outside these hotels, and you're right, it nearly caused a civil war.
And the issue is, it's causing civil war because the politicians don't want you to be smart enough to know that. Like, excuse me, That means you have not done your job that you're getting paid for. Let's pull you guys out. I mean, I don't know what, I know what we would do here in the United States. We would make sure whoever was serving isn't serving again. And I don't, we have a problem here in California where we elect stupid people on a regular basis, but that's part of the Democrats. So we call them liberals. I don't know what you call your lefties, but that's what they are. You got to remember the Muslims and the Nazis united together during World War II. These are the people that love Nazis you brought into your country.
We've even got a bigger problem than that, Paul. Yeah, the lefties, the wokies, we call them, they're the conservatives and the lib Demo Democrats. But our biggest problem is now even Labour, that's supposed to be middle or partly right, they're going totally left, and
Yes.
against the people because they're scared to speak out. The only hope we have is someone like Nigel Farage, a friend of Trump, that that he can lead the country. But a lot of the same old people from the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, are fleeing them politicians' places, and they're going over to Farage. So all it's going to be is the same people, different name for the group. So we've got problems.
Yeah, I'm looking at Sweden and I laugh because they have their labels are the exact opposite. The ones who are on target over there are the Swedish Democrats, which makes me laugh every time I think about it. They're the ones who are saying, "Hey, these guys are dangerous. Look what they're doing." Shh, the media is like, "Oh, we're getting paid by the government. You can't tell anyone that."
Mm.
Okay, in the UK and through most of the media throughout Europe, they follow the Associated Press rules. Well, we have a problem with this. You know what's not allowed in the Associated Press rules? You can't use things like
Free speech.
Islamic terrorism. You can't say
Mm.
Islamic Jihad unless it's part of a title like Palestinian Islamic Jihad. You can't say that the cause of this is the belief in Islam. You can't say that. It's against the rules of the journalists. Well, wait a minute. So you're not allowing the public to become informed. So let's throw out the Associated Press rules and just print the truth. Oh, well, we can't do that. And this is what you end up with. And this is one of the reasons that makes it easier for your social media or whatever to get tagged.
And that's why there's a
The
lot of
UK,
citizen journalists, and one of them from Canada, I forgot his name now, but he was supporting the Tommy Robinson case. He does, and he went into the highest court in the land, in London, and
yes.
I don't blame him. And he was filming, or at least recording. Now, what he was doing is writing notes in Tommy Robinson's trial, and they didn't like it. But he said, "Look, I've got a Canadian press card." And because it was a press card, although he just bought it, anyone can buy one in Canada, the rules were okay. So it is something to do with if you're showing your toe in the party line, then you're okay. So if you've got a press card, you must be following the rules.
Yeah, he runs the Rebel. I
Rebel
think
News,
his name
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. Rebel News is outstanding. He does fundraisers throughout the world for Tommy Robinson, and he's been recording all that. Yeah, it was humorous to me. I expected that to happen. I think he expected it to happen too, because again, the UK government is scared the common people might become informed. Well, why are they scared about that? Then they'll realize, oh, well, we're on the take somehow. They don't want people to know there's reasons why this stuff is happening. There's either some kind of kickback, they're expecting people to vote a certain way because the Muslims come in and they'll vote that certain way. I don't know. In the United States, I do know it means if the Muslims come in, so they will vote with the most liberal party. It's not that they agree with them on anything. It's that they will unite with the dumbest of the dumb because they're stupid enough to vote with the Muslim. All right, that's how they do it here in the United States. So the Democrats, all the Muslims become Democrats, not because they agree with anything they say. It's just because these are the guys who don't believe in you having guns. Oh, so it's easier for us to kill, for the Muslims to kill them because they'll have the guns. All right. They're not going to unite with the Republican force because the Republicans will have the guns and they'll say, no, we're not going to vote for you. We're not going to unite with you anyway. They do have Muslims who come into the conservative party and say we're moderate and all this. When you actually interview these people who claim to be moderate, no, they're not. And this is the humor. You actually do. There's a guy who I love out of Canada. I'm going to promote him right now. Eric Brazeau is doing outstanding work in Canada. I will promote his work as much as I can. Actual friend of mine. I've been in Canada, speaking in London, speaking in Toronto. It's my neighbor. I mean, we consider it a sister city where I live, and yeah, I'm concerned they're going to totally lose their ability to have freedom of speech. And then I keep getting reminded, well, they don't have freedom of speech. They have freedom of expression. Oh, wait a minute. That means you can't do a lot. In the UK, you really don't have freedom of speech, do you?
Not officially now. We used to think we had. I
And
mean, in 2015, I came up with this silly idea, and it was silly, but it worked. 'Cause we had to compromise, but it was regarding children in care, and we wanted to do a protest. We thought no one's listening, so what did we do? We blocked the motorway that goes around London, the M25. Well, that was the intention, but the police said, "Look, if you do a very go slow, we'll escort you and make it all perfect, so no one gets injured." That's the kind of police you want, someone who's willing to help you rather than just shut you down, because now they just shut you down. You go to the police or the politicians, say, look, there's a major problem of, let's say, fraud or conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, whatever. No, they think you're mad, and if you keep on, they send you to a mental institution.
and this is this is their way. I mean, it's almost like we're going back to the Red Russia that we remember when we were younger, the red, and when, I mean, in the United States, when I was in high school, they taught the only good red was a dead red. Oh, this is what Canada is becoming like. This is what the UK has pretty much turned like. Now they go out and they arrest grandma who posted something on Facebook.
Exactly.
Now they go out and grab a teacher for refusing to say somebody who is a boy is now a girl, and he's supposed to lie to the student. You know, that happened in I had a job. I was working part-time in an extra gig, and I was told I had to call my colleague an it. So I turned to my boss and I said, "Are you requiring me to lie on the job? I need that in writing." He looked at me like, "What?" I says, "I need it in writing. You want me to lie while working for you. I can't do that. Then I'm not going to call him an it. Unless you put it in writing, I have to lie as part of this job."
God.
So I think that's the same route this gentleman should go. You have to put it in writing. I have to deceive this child. I mean, no one has put, I mean, this it's you have to put it that way. If you don't say I mean, when you're deceiving a child, that is dangerous because you're now violating your oath as an educator. That's how simple it is.
There's another good channel over here. He's an Iranian guy called Maya Tusi, and he really is in with it, because being an Iranian, I guess he's got first-hand experience of certain things happening, and yeah, he brings all the I mean, we call it unite the kingdom now because that's exactly what we need to do, unite the kingdom.
Yeah, in Iran, we're waiting to see. They're really making it difficult to get information out. We're talking at least 12,000 dead in Iran. I keep up as much as I can.
He told
Um,
us what was going to happen. It's got to be about September time, and now it's happening just sort of at this Christmas, New Year. But he told in September what was going to happen there, and then the people will be murdered for talking and so on. It's ridiculous,
yeah,
really.
and you got to look at it this way. What's not? I'll tell you what's happening in the news. We've been talking about this for 3, 4 weeks now. When they started, the media started covering this in the United States and in the UK. They initially started covering these outbursts or protests. They were saying they were economic. This all about economics. That is a lie from the pit of hell. These people were calling themselves Persians, and they were protesting Islam. Oh, they don't want that out there. That's not supposed to be in the media. So what just happened this past week, Hamas came out telling all the media, this is what's happening in Iran is all about economics. Oh,
Hmm.
so again, Hamas is simply a chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's just a chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Look at it that way. Oh, so if you look at it that way, now you got to start asking questions about why are certain things allowed in your country and in mine. And
That
in my
makes
country will be
sense.
why
That
is
makes
CARE
sense now.
allowed to exist in this country? CARE is Hamas in America. Why are certain things allowed in your country, like fundraisers for Hamas? Oh, yeah,
And of course, this is
because
where two-tier police and two-tier politics came in recently because they were letting them march and they were shouting, screaming, throwing things. But as quiet people, that we weren't allowed to march on certain days. The Palestine people were allowed.
and this is happening here in the States too. It's going to continue, especially in New York City. I'm waiting for a huge thing to happen there. We'll see what happens. Watch New York City.
It didn't
I
help
think
with
it's going to prove
it,
interesting.
it didn't help with electing a certain mayor, did it? Or a boss of the city.
Well, that's why we're expecting some bigger trouble with Mamdani. But shortly after he got elected, he met with President Trump. And I think there was a couple purposes to that meeting, like let him know that he knows who his family is, where they are, and man, not in a threatening way, but to let him know if you're going to play these games, we're going to play them, and you're not going to win because right. If you could, here's the big example: Minnesota. All right, you look at Minnesota, where all the Somali fraud is coming from. You're probably hearing about that.
Mm.
Billions and billions of dollars of fraud. Um, there was a TSA type agent who was documenting the millions of dollars of fraud that were being taken out of the country to Somalia. And they were being allowed to do it, which is against federal law, which again, mind numbing. Um, if Minnesota is an example and Trump uses the Insurrection Act, Mamdani will be scared to do what he wants to do. The Jews are just waking up to how evil this man is because they're part of how he got elected, which makes no sense. Why would you vote for the guy who wants to kill you? And that's one of the things I still can't comprehend.
Yeah, I was shocked when he was elected anyway.
It's it's going to be interesting. Again,
It, his background more than anything, not who he is. It's
it's who he's related to as well because he has a lot of foreign interests. This guy has, I mean, relatives who are multimillionaires, and he's talking about giving people free rides and stuff. The funniest thing that happened, if you know anything about how government works here, he was making all these promises in the United States, in New York City. He's making all these promises to things he has no control over as a mayor of New York City. I'm going to sit there and laugh because the people who voted for him had to be stupid because they didn't know what he had control over. I'm just going to guess that that's part of what's happening in London and how Sadiq Khan is staying in office.
So I think the way forward for us then really as people, rather than, well, you can still do the protest when you're allowed, but rather than looking and sounding anti-Islam or anti-Muslim, is to, read your book, research it a bit more, read a bit more of the Quran, and just keep sending parts of it to your politician for them to understand it. Because until then, we're buggered. Pardon my language.
Well, I say get rid of your politicians who they are if they're not standing up for you. Fire them. Don't elect them again. Give them something to vote on, and then publicize everything you can about where they voted that you don't agree with, where they're voting in favor. If you don't have something proposed, I mean, so what was the list? There was a number that just came out. It was like, according to, let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, I saw this in the Daily Mail. The number of illegal migrants entering the UK was just estimated in 2025 to reach 41,427. Again, this is an island we're talking about. I mean, how do we know that's even close to a count if they're coming in on little bitty boats and nobody's stopping them
Oh,
until they may
there's a
be
new system.
detected?
So, Paul, there's a new system now. The minute you get onto a dinghy or a small boat in France, I think it's not many miles anyway. Once you've reached that level, you get a free lift. So they know what's coming because the French authorities message the British authorities. They pick them up, and that's how they can stop all the channel deaths. So that's how they've got an accurate number.
So I wrote an article about this about 5 years ago. You want to
Wow.
stop the migration? Take them back to the country of origin and okay, in this case, take them back to France.
Yeah,
Charge France for every single person they save. Leave France with a bill that will make them cry. That's what the UK should do. Every single person they pick up and save, you drop them back off in France and you leave them with a bill. Oh, okay. We spent X amount of hours on these people. Okay, we picked up, let's say 200 people they pick up. I think the first count was like we'll just say 30. Okay. That cost us 200 man hours. We're going to charge you $100 for each man hour. This is the bill. Okay. We saved all these people. They came from your country. I don't care that they're not your citizens, but you let them leave. Guess what? You let them go on something that's not safe. We're dropping them off, and here's the bill. That's what has to happen. You're no longer part of the EU. Do it. Bill your neighbor for giving you trouble. Pass that one in the UK Parliament. That would be great.
yeah. Instead, we've paid France, well, not billions, but a lot of millions. To what? Do nothing. They're doing nothing. I mean,
Just turn it into a billing system. Hey, we'll save all these people. We'll drop them back on your shore. You can keep them, or kick them out. Well, when I was in France, this is one of the things that killed me. I asked them, what happens if one of these people who's applied for citizenship doesn't meet the requirements? You know what they said? And this is the guy who was in charge of the refugee system. You know what he said? We can't deport them. Just sat there and laughed and asked them if they were a country or not. Still makes me laugh.
oh dear. Well, going on to the sort of the Lord side of it now, the Christian Lord, can he help us out? I mean, or is it such a bad holy war? That's what they're saying over here. It's a holy war. Can our God help us? And then you know what confuses me to hell is why is there so many gods? Why can't we just have one? You know, you can still be Muslim, you know, and
Well,
French and Polish and what? It
well,
gets so
their Allah
confusing.
is not, yeah, but their Allah is not the same God as their Allah is all about murder, death, and killing and
I
making
know, but
slaves.
it's
But
strange, isn't it?
The Christian God is about love. The radical Christian will love you to death. He'll teach you about Jesus and pray that you become a Christian. The average Muslim, the rad or the person some people will define as radical, they will kill you. Why? Because they're following their Quran. That's the person who's following the Quran.
You know, I get
So
that.
radical is something simply doing what they're supposed to do. Oh, so in this case, if
I
you
do
accept
get
that
that
they're different,
because, you know, I'm going to be radical in loving my God because it's nice for me, and they're going to be radical because they like it that way. But there should have just been one God instead of two, I think, or several gods. You know, we should all.
well, look at it this way: their God is actually Satan. So you have a war going on between Satan and God. And if you're accepting, if you look at Jerusalem, if you accept if you accept Satan in your midst, you're digging your own hole. That's what's actually happening in the UK. They've accepted Satan in their midst. So Jerusalem went through this. I mean, this is one of the reasons to prove you can just if you want a proof that the Bible is real, look at Israel. Look at the story of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was told I mean, it's in Isaiah 29 and Isaiah 30. You have to give the God of the Bible wants is your heart. He wants you to believe in him with your whole heart. And the Jews weren't doing this. And they faced real problems because they accepted evil in their midst. Oh, gee. And they have to keep learning the hard way. Um, and God calls them rebellious children. Oh boy, that's a great description. When you accept Islam in your midst, you're accepting Satan in your midst. So this is if you start looking at it not as two gods, but as Satan versus God. I mean, that's what's happening. And you have to look at it like that, not two gods. This is a little bitty thing called God by Muslims. But again, when they call him God, they're not telling you the truth. If you actually read the Quran, you'll find descriptions of Satan. Oh, the chief of all deceivers. Who's that in the Bible? That is Satan. But in the Quran, it's Allah.
Well, yeah, that's what gets confusing to the average ordinary person. But then again,
Yeah, it just
it isn't really that complicated, I suppose you put it that way. Just some people want to be happy, some people want to be really sad.
Well,
Um,
just be truthful. That's what it comes down to. Throw out the emotions. Just put the facts out there and let people find them. I mean, let people read them. I mean, if they're going to call that being hate speech, um, if you're quoting the facts, how are facts hate speech? Someone please explain that to me. If I put up all these verses in the Quran and they basically say this is Allah is Satan. I'm quoting the Quran. I can't help you. I mean, it's what the Quran says. It's kind of mind-numbing. You can go to any chapter in the Quran and find that, and I'm just kind of mind-numbed. Like I said, I've put my friends to the challenge on that one, and I just pulled a chapter out at random. He's better at this than I am, but he's studied far longer than I have. And that's the thing. You have to study to find this is what it is. The Bible tells us to study to show ourselves approved to God. And if the people in the UK will not do this, they're opening themselves to allowing Satan to live in their midst.
I know one thing though. if you really pray hard enough and you want something, it will eventually happen. And I did that as a test because, I said to myself, well, I'm not really into this religious rubbish. Um, I was it was 20 years ago, I was going through some kind of bad problem. And I said, look, if there is a God, before the next hour was finished, I need to show some real clear sign. You might laugh a little bit because the Jehovah Witnesses then knocked on the door. I know it's not the same sort of beliefs, but that sold me. I said, "Yeah, look, that there is a God." And the other way I look at it as well, when bad things are happening, if you actually latch onto that bad stuff, it actually gets worse. See, when you hear bad stuff, you turn that into a good stuff somehow, that problem goes away. So I do know that for sure.
I think you have to, if you can put your faith in Christ, that's what it comes down to. And if you're daring enough to believe in the God of the Bible, you're going to study the Bible and you're going to want to know him more. This is one of the reasons I write devotionals, what I call deep dive devotionals. So you get into the nitty gritty of what each little passage means, rather than just reading through it and skimming. If you're skimming, you're not looking to learn. Um, okay, I'm a guy. I when I was married, I got in trouble for skimming through my wife's notes to me. And now when I think about it, she was so right to yell at me. Because yeah, I did that. I did that quite a lot. And I think guys do that in general.
I'll tell you what I find, and this is a bad one against God now, or whoever wrote the Bibles. I expected the Bible to be like a story in a way that there's an A to Z and then that's it, like a big book. It it isn't. It's full of like quotes, statements, and you've then got to go to like 50 pages down the road to get the relevance of what you've read 50 pages before, which to me that don't make sense. You get more
Well, it's
customers if
written over a thousands of years. I mean, a few thousand years. So you like the story of Genesis, and then if you read Genesis all the way through to, let's say, Deuteronomy, you've read the first five books. All right. Those are all I mean, the timeline's all there. Next is Joshua, Judges. Uh, I mean, you want to read the historical stuff. It's all verified. It's historically accurate. So
you
that's
know
what I find is
I have
fascinating.
read Genesis, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I like Psalms as well, but the rest of them at the
I challenge
time
you to
was
read Judges. It will blow your mind. Read the book of Judges, and then
okay.
read First Samuel. You'll want to read First Samuel all the way to Second Kings after you read that, because it's the history and the impossibilities that God does. You sit there like, wait a minute, that shouldn't be possible. You know the story of the 300? You seen that movie, The 300? I think it's where they have Spartans taking on everyone.
Oh yeah.
That's actually the real story of the 300 is in the Bible.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's not mythology like the one the in that movie 300. It's in the Bible. It's recorded and it's older. So go back, read about Gideon, and you'll sit there and go, that's, yeah, we saw a movie where it's possible, but yeah. Sit here and yeah, the true
My
story of the
wife
300 is in the Bible.
my wife is fascinated with these type of films with that they're biblical but they're into film format and they often last for 4 or 5 hours and
No, I can't do
you know
that.
but I do actually myself I like them a little bit because it's interesting, isn't it?
I like the devotionals I've done. I've got about six or seven done. I've got a lot more coming, but I've got like 10 more ready to publish. I just have to go through the process. It's a long process.
Well,
Um, so my intent here is to get people, if you read the Word of God and study it, it it takes a lot of things out of you that I would consider evil. The desire to do stupid things, the desire to fall. If you have the desire to do sinful things, it's not really there. It kind of dissipates because you're finding yourself falling into God's word, and God's word gets inside of you and changes you from within. That is one of the most miraculous things that I can say that God has done with me, changing me from within. Um, I was not a, I'm the guy who I would never have been, I just wasn't a very nice guy. And
I,
I look at it that way. I
I
mean, if
guess
you look
that's
at what
why.
God is changing me, yeah.
I guess that's why he's accepted the fact that, you're not going against this. Um, you wrote a book. You're not going against this in a negative way. You're researching what Islam and all that stuff's all
Right.
about, and you're speaking
Yeah.
calmly about it. So that's
Well, yeah, in my
the
last book,
positive
The
thing.
Cancer of Civilization Jihad, I have an evangelical hug to the Muslim in here. And like it's yeah, it's an evangelical for the Muslims who read this book. And it's the last appendix that's in here. So like, yeah, as a Christian, I want Muslims to find Christ. I I do videos on YouTube. I've done a huge series of, or I'm going to be doing part 94 either this week or next on basically, I mean, using critical thinking versus Sharia. If you use critical thinking, you leave Islam. That's the whole truth, because you can't use critical thinking and accept Islam.
We've got about a
It's
half a minute.
all right. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all, Paul. I'll put all your links, your books, underneath when it's published on all the podcasts and sites and YouTube.